Clarity is the foundation of any meaningful connection, and it begins long before you meet someone. Too often, people enter relationships without understanding what they truly need, hoping that the right partner will simply fill in the blanks. But when you don't know your own values, priorities, and non negotiables, you leave the door wide open for confusion, mixed signals, and relationships that drain more than they give. Clarity is not about creating a long checklist of superficial traits. It's about defining the deeper qualities that allow love to feel safe, balanced, and sustainable. These might include honesty, respect, consistency, emotional maturity, shared values, or long term goals that align with your own. When you take time to reflect on what genuinely matters to you, you begin to recognize the difference between someone who is simply available and someone who is truly compatible. This self-awareness protects you from mistaking temporary excitement for long-term potential. It helps you distinguish attention from intention and chemistry from character. Clarity gives you a filter, one that makes it easier to walk away from relationships that feel almost right but aren't right enough. Instead of being swayed by pressure, loneliness, or the fear of missing out, you become guided by your own internal compass. And this clarity doesn't just shape who you choose, it shapes how you show up. You communicate better, set boundaries with confidence, and build connections from a grounded place rather than a reactive one. When you know what you need, you stop settling for less than you deserve. You also become more available for the kind of relationship that truly fits. Clarity is not rigid or limiting, it is liberating. It ensures that when the right person does enter your life, you recognize them not by accident, but because you knew what you were looking for all along. Becoming the person you're looking for is one of the most empowering parts of finding a meaningful relationship. It shifts the focus from searching outward to strengthening inward, which ultimately shapes the quality of connections you attract. Many people have a clear idea of what they want from a partner: honesty, emotional maturity, stability, kindness, ambition, but rarely pause to ask whether they embody those qualities themselves. The truth is that healthy, balanced relationships form between people who are aligned not only in desire, but in readiness. When you cultivate the traits you value most, you naturally draw in people who resonate with them. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being intentional. If you want someone who communicates openly, practice expressing your own feelings instead of withholding them out of fear. If you want someone grounded and secure, work on healing parts of yourself that trigger insecurity or anxious attachment. If you desire someone driven and compassionate, invest in your own goals while nurturing empathy in your daily interactions. Growth becomes a mirror that reflects the type of partner you are prepared to welcome. Becoming the person you're looking for also ensures that when the right person arrives, you can meet them with confidence rather than with doubt or self-sabotage. Strong relationships come from two people who have done enough inner work to show up with awareness instead of defensiveness, curiosity instead of judgment, and commitment instead of avoidance. It means building a life you're proud of so that love becomes an addition, not a rescue. Ultimately, the energy you carry shapes the connections you attract. When you grow into the healthiest version of yourself, you elevate your standards without even trying. You no longer chase compatibility, you live it. And the person who's meant for you will recognize that growth, meet you at your level, and build something real from it. Chemistry can be intoxicating. It's exciting, immediate, and often the spark that draws two people together. But while chemistry can start a connection, compatibility is what sustains it. Too many relationships begin with intensity and end with confusion simply because people mistake emotional highs for long-term alignment. Chemistry is about how someone makes you feel in the moment. Compatibility is about how someone fits into your life over time. When you rely solely on chemistry, you may overlook red flags, ignore inconsistencies, or convince yourself that the connection is deeper than it truly is. But when you prioritize compatibility, you begin to notice whether your values, goals, communication styles, and expectations actually match. Compatibility doesn't eliminate attraction, it enhances it. It means choosing someone whose actions align with their words, someone who supports your growth rather than competes with it, and someone whose vision for the future blends with your own. A relationship built on compatibility feels steady, not chaotic. It gives you room to be yourself without constantly negotiating your worth. It replaces emotional roller coasters with reliability and temporary thrills with lasting trust. This shift in focus also helps prevent settling. When you understand the difference between spark and substance, you stop choosing people based solely on how intensely you feel drawn to them. You begin to ask deeper questions. Do we communicate well? Do we respect each other's boundaries? Can we grow together through challenges? Do our values align when romance fades and real life takes over? Chemistry can make you feel alive, but compatibility helps you build a life. Choosing compatibility means choosing someone who meets you not just in passion, but in partnership. It means recognizing that the right person won't only ignite your heart, they'll also stand beside you with consistency, understanding, and commitment day after day. Being intentional without becoming desperate is one of the most nuanced parts of finding the right relationship. Intentionality means you put effort into your search, you show up, you communicate clearly, you invest time in getting to know people, and you stay open to connection. But intentionality is very different from chasing or forcing something that isn't naturally unfolding. When you're intentional, you move with purpose. When you're desperate, you move from fear. And fear leads to settling, overextending, ignoring red flags, and accepting treatment far below the standards you truly want. Intentional effort means you date with awareness, not pressure. You ask meaningful questions early on. You observe how someone handles conflict, responsibility, and honesty, and you allow relationships to unfold at a healthy pace. You don't rush into labels just to feel secure, nor do you cling to someone simply because you're tired of starting over. Instead, you allow connection to develop organically while still using your judgment to assess whether the relationship is truly aligned with what you're seeking. This balance also helps you remain grounded in your self-worth. When you are intentional, you honor your boundaries and communicate your expectations without apology. You are willing to continue investing in someone who shows consistency and equally willing to walk away from someone who doesn't. This approach helps you build relationships based on mutual interest rather than emotional scarcity. Remember, connection grows when it's nurtured, not forced. You can put in effort, show care, initiate conversations, make time, but the other person must meet you halfway. If you find yourself carrying the relationship alone, you're forcing something that was never meant to be. Intentionality requires courage, the courage to pursue potential, and the courage to let go when potential isn't being met. When you move with purpose instead of fear, you leave space for the right person to step in, someone who values your presence and matches your effort with their own. Patience is one of the strongest forms of self-respect, especially when it comes to love. In a world that constantly tells you to hurry, settle down, pick someone, make it work, it can feel uncomfortable to wait for a relationship that genuinely aligns with your needs. But choosing patience isn't isn't about waiting passively or refusing all possibilities. It's about refusing to compromise your emotional well being for the sake of temporary comfort. When you are patient, you acknowledge your own worth. You understand that loneliness is a feeling, not a reason to commit to someone who doesn't truly fit your life or values. Patience allows you to see potential relationships with clarity rather than desperation. You're not clouded by fear of being alone or pressure from others' timelines. Instead, you make decisions calmly from a place of confidence. This keeps you from entering situations where you have to shrink yourself, silence your needs, or pretend you're satisfied with less than what you desire. Without patience, it becomes easy to cling to almost right connections simply because the idea of waiting feels unbearable. But settling often leads to long-term regret, emotional exhaustion, and the painful realization that you traded authenticity for convenience. On the other hand, patience creates space for growth, space for better opportunities, and space for a partner who truly aligns with your heart. When you hold your standard long enough, the right person doesn't feel like a miracle. They feel like the natural result of honoring yourself. They meet your energy, respect your boundaries, and value your presence because they are also ready for the depth you offer. Ultimately, patience is not the absence of action. It is the presence of faith in yourself, faith in your standards, and faith that a relationship built on alignment is worth the wait. Choosing patience is choosing your future self, the one who will look back with gratitude that you never settled for less than real, lasting love. The right person is someone who meets you where you are, not someone you have to chase, fix, or convince. When you hold your standards with confidence, you naturally filter out people who are not ready or willing to offer the same level of intention. The right person doesn't require you to shrink, compromise your identity, or carry the emotional weight of the relationship alone. Instead, they rise to meet your energy because they genuinely want to, not because you pressure them. This is what it means to attract someone aligned with your values. They show up with consistency because reliability is part of who they are. When you refuse to settle, you create an environment where authenticity thrives. You can be yourself without walking on eggshells. You can communicate your needs without fearing judgment. You can express your dreams and insecurities knowing they will be met with understanding rather than dismissal. A healthy partner supports your growth, not with empty promises, but with actions that demonstrate commitment and care. They don't just tolerate your world, they want to be part of it, and they make room for you in theirs. Finding your person isn't about perfection, it's about partnership. It's about choosing someone who listens, who learns you, and who values the connection enough to nurture it. The right person stands beside you during challenges instead of stepping away. They don't disappear when things get complicated. They communicate, adjust, and work through it with you. Their love isn't inconsistent or conditional. It's steady, intentional, and rooted in respect. When someone meets you where you are, it confirms that your standards were not too high. They were guiding you. The right relationship feels like alignment, not effortful convincing. It feels like being chosen every day, not negotiated into place. And when you experience that, you understand why settling was never an option.